Hello everyone. My name is Juana. I'm gonna be presenting about Sor Juana Ines de la Cruz. So let me get this started and let's start. Let me see. There seems there's an issue. There we go. So let me give you some biographical information. Sor Juana was born in Planta, Mexico, at some point between 1648 and 1651. Her name at birth was Juana Ramirez de Asbaje, and she was born to an unwed couple. Her mother a criolla and her father a Spanish military officer. If you don't know what a criolla is, a criolla or a criollo is a first generation born person whose parents are from Spain, but this person was born in the Americas. So so Juana's mother's parents were from Spain, and and she was born in the Americas. And then because Sor Juana was born from a criolla and a Spanish military officer, then she also became a criolla. She can also be considered a part of this group of people. The criollos were technically considered some of the highest people in the social stratification of this whole society. First were the people that were born and raised in Spain, and they were the criollos, the sons and daughters of these people. History says that since a very young age, Sor Juan learned how to read and write. Some of my sources, including La Respuesta, which is a prose writing a work in prose that Sor Juana wrote, says that she learned how to read and write at the age of 3. So, yeah, she seems to be a very smart and very intelligent and very quick learner. She had a strong desire to obtain higher education, to the point that when she was 6 years old, she wanted her mother to send her to a college in Mexico City. She always liked the education and wanted to obtain knowledge. In her mid-teenage years, she was recognized as the most erudite woman in New Spain. So she was recognized as the most intelligent woman in New Spain. So my sources even say that even before that she was recognized and while she was being recognized, she was studying Latin, grammar, and different subjects. She just had this love for knowledge that continued all throughout her life. Some more things about her biographical information are that at the age of 13, she joined the court of the Viceroy Don Antonio Sebastián Toledo and Viceroy Doña Leonor Carreto. The viceroys were like the governors, so she joined the court of these people at the age of her 13. That's truthfully amazing. Then in 1669, she took the veil. She became a nun at the convent in San Jerónimo. So she became a nun, even when some of my sources say that she was not the most devoted person, but she became a nun because she wanted that opportunity to get knowledge, obtain wisdom, obtain information without the social pressures that came with being a Creole woman at that time. So she wanted to cast away all the noise of society and have time to obtain knowledge. And that's the reason why she became a nun, why she took the veil and became part of this convent. She focused her studies in the fields of literature, philosophy, theology, and science. And she died in 1695. Well, there was a cholera outbreak in her convent. And let me give you some insights with regards to her writing. As part of my research, I was reading a lot of things that she wrote or things that people wrote to her. So Sor Juana's writing was very marked by her social political standing as a criolla in a Spanish colony. So she definitely wrote from her context. She wrote as someone who was a firstborn person in Mexico, and she wrote in the perspective of her group of people, like criollos, and then of in different the perspective of different groups of people that were basically firstborns in the new Americas that were being colonized. Let me tell you something else about her writings. Her writings are extremely complex. Just in a little verse that I was reading, and in one of her poems, she had different stanzas, and the stanzas jumped from talking about the pyramids to talking about Greco-Roman mythology to talking about philosophy and theology, all in just a couple lines. And it was so complex, but it all worked together. Some of the different people that talk about Sor Juana say that just to understand what she was writing about, you had to have a basic understanding of mythology, science, philosophy, theology, and literature, and that's just to barely be able to understand whatever she was saying in her poems. So yeah, her writing is very complex. Her voice embraced the racial and cultural hybridity that constitutes the Americas. So her voice was from the criollos, from the mestizos, from the mulattos, all different people that were born here, that were born in the Americas at that time in Mexico. Um, and she spoke out of all those contexts, and she wrote for all those contexts. She's a voice for women of her time, and one can see this in works as her prose La Respuesta. She writes as some sort of proto-feminist and refutes the male voices of her time. In two of her works, El Sueño and La Respuesta, she portrays rationality as not only being a male characteristic, but also a female characteristic. We see definitely that in La Respuesta, for example, La Respuesta is the answer or the response. So Juana is responding to this person that's critiquing something that she wrote, and the critique that this person made. I was reading a little, like I actually read throughout the critique, and it was a critique more than anything on she being a woman speaking about a theological concept. So then in La Respuesta, she gives a response from as she her response as a woman that's very educated in theology and in biblical studies, and gives this person an answer to all that critique that she made, that was made against her. It was really interesting. The critique was like 5 pages. The response was like 34 pages. She was definitely bringing that person down. In her writing, she does not argue for a separate space for female voices. Instead, she wants female voices and male voices to be in dialogue, even when some people wanted the female voices to be in a place by themselves, just dialoguing amongst themselves. What Sor Juana wanted was a cohesive dialogue between female and male voices, so that each voice could understand each other a little better and could find value in each other. Sor Juana brings to Christian theology different things. So let me tell you about the significance that she brings to the theology of Christianity. There's a depiction of Christ as the embodiment of divine beauty. So the beauty of Christ in Sor Juana's Christology becomes the foundation of the Imago Dei. So then this image of God that we have as humans for Sor Juana, the basic part of that image of God is the beauty of Christ, is beauty in itself. So even when in the past the base Imago Dei or understanding of this image of God was rationality, was the ability to reason, Sor Juana said, no, that's not really the image, the Imago Dei. The Imago Dei is beauty, the beauty of Christ. She also portrays beauty as a primary attribute of God's character. So it's not rationality, it's not reason, it's not necessarily eschatological purpose or some kind of purpose in itself, but it's beauty, the primary aspect or attribute that God possesses. So Juana affirmed Christ's universal salvific will. So even the indigenous people in the Americas are reached by Christ's salvation. What Sor Juana did was that she affirmed that Christ came to save everyone. So then even the indigenous people and different people that were in the Americas, here in the Americas, and were considered less of humans or less of people than some other people that were coming from Europe maybe, they could be saved by Christ's salvation, because Christ's salvation was for everyone. She used her voice to affirm the humanity of the people who were systematically dehumanized and oppressed. These were the indigenous people, the mulatto people, the Criollo, even some Criollos. Sometimes I would assume that this was the case with them. Some mestizos, some African descendants. She used her voice to speak for all of them and bring humanity back to them. She also developed a theology of Mary. She said, Mary is the best temple of God. When one dedicates a temple to God, it can only be in the name of Mary. So she brought the understanding of Mary, the mother of Jesus, and made a theology out of it. She also diversified the public exposition of theological expression. So most of her works were a little different from the works of people in her time. People usually did some kind of a thing as essays or different writings that had that academic feel to them. Well, she wrote in poetry. She wrote in songs. She incorporated dances. She used the arts to be able to extend some kind of theological truth. So we have out of her 65 sonnets, out of her work 65 sonnets, 62 romances, 2 comedies, 3 allegorical dramas, 16 villancicos, 1 serao, and 2 farces. So then what she did is that she wrote different things in different ways, in different artistic ways, to be able to reach different audiences. Beforehand, theology was only directed towards one audience, but then she brought theology to a place where it could be understood for the um, people for by the people that were not very educated, and it could be understood by the people that were very educated, almost in an equal way. Let me tell you some things about Sor Juana and the empire. Sor Juana lived in the midst of the colonial empire of New Spain. All of her theology was in response to the context of New Spain. So, so the her new theological expression, how she expressed theology through the arts, was a response to New Spain, Christ's universal salvific work. She brought a theology of a dark-skinned Mary, a very contextual Mary with regards to what was happening at that time where she was in Mexico. Um, she brought this theology, as I was talking about this before, about the beauty being God's greatest attribute. So she made all this in response to the Eurocentric and rationalistically centered, I would even say, ideas that were brought from the Spaniards to New Spain. She also resisted the empire by not falling into the temptation of relying on her social class. As I was telling you at the very beginning, the Criollos were the second ones in level, if you will, with regards to social stratification. So then the people that came from Spain were the first ones, and then the Criollos were the second ones. But she didn't fall into the temptation of relying on her social class as a way of living. Instead, she lived a life that humanized those who were dehumanized, provided a voice for the minorities of her time, and professed a reimagining of the significance found in womanhood for a male-dominated society. Sor Juana was a person that lived a life to seek knowledge, to seek understanding, and in lived a life, I would even say, as a proto-liberation theologian, or if you will, as a proto-feminist, as the first one of this group of people that decided to fight and speak and be a voice for those who were less, for those who were dehumanized, and brought humanity, the redemption of Christ, brought a voice of the beauty of Christ in their lives. And this was all done in this context of the Americas, the new Spain, at her time. So many people even would call her the first theologian of the Americas, of this side of the world. So Sor Juana is a very interesting and very um, inspiring person. You saw my bibliography, and this is all that I have for this presentation of Sor Juana Ines de la Cruz.